So let's start our session, which is our signature move, which is Farmer's Trailblazer. Scalar to scale up. Scalar
Scale up
to
to
scale
scale
up.
up. Scale up
Scalar
to
to
scale
scale
up.
up. Yeah, okay. So what we will be discussing today is why, what, and how of the Gamp 5, which we discussed last time. Importance of the Gamp 5, how the evolution of the Gamp 5 has happened. So what was Gamp 1, then Gamp 2, then Gamp 3, and then 4, and then 5. And again in the Gamp 5 also, we are going for a Gamp 5 version 2. So what we are going to discuss on that part. Structure of the Gamp 5, key concept, the lifestyle approach, and the categories of the Gamp 5, risk management, and then difference between the Gamp 5 and Gamp 5.2. So we discussed about last time why, what, and how. So firstly, why Gamp 5? Because it ensures the compliance. It helps organizations to meet the regulatory guidelines, because there are so many systems today's world in the pharma are all digitized. You talk about any kind of thing, maybe you talk about e-logbook or you talk about e-BMR, the ERP system, SAP system, all the things are completely digitized. Let's say earlier we used to do a lot of things on manually. Now everything goes onto the barcode system. From the barcode you scan, let's say, the sample, and then that entire sample will go into the let's say the limbs. Yeah. So how we can improve the compliance? Because more the let's say the documentation reduction, more the complexity of the automation, and more the complexity of automation, you require more the compliance part. So these are the ensuring the compliance, help organization to meet the regulatory requirements set by the authorities of FDA. So when we talk about FDA, what are the rules they are talking about? They are talking about 21 CFR rules. In that, specifically part 11, which talks about the electronic data and electronic signature. If we talk about, let's say, EU, so then there is a EU Annex 11, which also talks about electronic data, electronic signature. So there are so many regulatory authorities which will talk about the electronic data, and all those things. If you want to comply, then you need to understand what exactly is the 21 CFR Part 11, what is Gamp 5, and because of this, it will help sustain the product quality and patient safety. Provide the complete framework to ensure that the systems contribute for the consistent product quality, and because of that, we require to understand. So that's the why part of it. And going forward, like when there was a, even when I was started my career in 2003 2004, at that time there was no risk based approach. Recently, around 4 5 years back, the entire risk based approach has come up. So anyone can talk about what is the risk based approach. Can anyone tell? Venkatesh, Chirag, Rahul, Rupesh, what exactly is the risk based? There are so many people talk about the risk based approach. So what is the risk based approach?
Means it's a risk assessment.
Yeah,
Risk
risk
assessment.
assessment we used to do earlier also, right? But in the qualification, in the, let's say, entire documentation, we have gone for now not only the doing the just a risk assessment, we go for the entire approach. So what exactly that approach is? What is the risk-based approach?
The new concept has came up that name.
Yeah. So that's a new concept, you can say, or that's a new approach. And I think rightly mentioned by Rahul in the chat. I think he's not able to unmute because, yeah, it is because I think he's traveling. RBA risk-based approach on the patient safety and the GMP. Absolutely. So what exactly is the risk-based approach is? In the earlier times, we used to handle all the documentation 100%. Like you do the FAT, you do the SAT, you do the complete documentation for all the tests, irrespective of is there any impact on the patient safety, is there any impact on the let's say product quality. Irrespective of that, 100% documentation, irrespective of patient safety and the quality. We were not at all discussing about that part. But now on the risk-based approach, we do only those tests. We do only those tests which are impacting the patient safety and the quality. We don't do rest of the tests repeat. Like you do the FAT, then you do the SAT. Let's say you do the SAT. Yeah. Then what you do? You do IQ, you do OQ, you do PQ. Now, many of the tests you have performed in FAT. Yeah. Rupesh, Venkatesh, Chirag, many of the tests you perform in FAT. But what you do? You entirely repeat again in the IQ, OQ, and PQ. Yes or no? Yeah.
Yes.
Why? Because we were not giving the importance of those tests which are done by the vendor. We want to do it again because we want to show that we are doing 100%. But when you do the risk-based approach, we can leverage. What we can do? We can leverage this test into the IQ, OQ, and PQ, whatever the test we have performed in the vendor's place, or maybe even in SAT. If we do perform some of the tests which are already done, then we need not to repeat the entire thing unless those things are changed because of the let's say physical location or because of some transportation, some kind of other things. If those things are not changing, then we are not going to perform those tests, and that is called the risk-based approach. So risk assessment, Venkatesh, हम लोग पहले भी बनाते थे. We used to prepare the risk assessment, but now we are not just preparing the risk assessment. What we are doing, we are completely changing our approach of doing the risk assessment. Yeah. Yeah, got it, Venkatesh, Chirag, Rupesh.
Yes, sir, got it.
Yeah. So that's the approach we have to adopt in. That is why we need to understand why Gamp 5 is important, because when we go for the Gamp 5, we need not to repeat all the tests. We can just repeat those tests which are, we think that these are critical for the patient safety, critical for the product quality. I'll repeat those tests. Rest of the test I will not repeat. I will leverage from the FAT-SAT. Now let's understand about the how part of it. So the start with the risk assessment, then driven by the life cycle approach, only the value added validation against the over compliance. This is very, very important. Value added validation. What is the meaning of value added addition? The validation which is actually adding a value for the product safety and quality rather than doing the over compliance. And then integrate the principles of QRM, predictive capability, and automation. So this is another way where we are talking about the quality risk management, predictive capability, and automation. Because in the current industry 4.0, there are so many things that we are going digital. We are going AI, we are going the AI/ML, we are going also IoT-based sensors. We are going a lot of things which are digital. So how we can improve our predictive capability? And that is what it happens with the help of the Gamp 5. Then what exactly we do in the Gamp 5? First, the set. So what exactly is the Gamp 5? The set of guidelines which is created by the ISP. So basically, the difference between the guidelines and the regulation is, it is not the complete regulation. It just gives you the guideline, the recommendation. Whether you do it or you don't do it, it is not going to cite you any problems in terms of any kind of audit. But if you are doing it, it is good. And it is designed by the International Society of Pharmaceutical Engineering. So what it focus? It focus on a computerized system which are used in the pharmaceutical industry, fit for the internet use. So basically, that's the why, what, and how of the Gamp 5. I hope that the entire part now I have repeated. Any questions so far? Rupesh, Chirag, Venkatesh, Rahul. Any questions so far?
Only
No, sir.
for machines and systems it is applicable, sir.
Yeah, it is applicable to all the systems which are electronically collecting the data, electronically storing the data, and those data you are utilizing to show it to the auditor that you are not writing it manually, but you are showing those data directly as your batch record, or the, let's say, the attachment to the batch records, something which you are directly utilizing as a data electronically. You are collecting the data electronically, you are recording them, you are storing them, you are, let's say, putting it for, let's say, the printout, and then show it to the auditor that this is how my entire batch processing has happened. Whether you are, let's say, take the data of digital manometers, the BMS, the EMS, or LIMS data, or let's say ERP data, any data that you are electronically collecting and then utilizing for your batch manufacturing or batch packaging, and you are showing it to the auditor that this is how I electronic done, then they will go for this kind of scrutiny, whether you are following those guidelines, whether you are following the 21 CFR Part 11, whether you are, let's say, having the audit trails, whether your username and password complexity. So there are so many clauses that will go into the 21 CFR Part 11. So those entire part will be applicable to all the things which are electronically generated, recorded, and then transmitted or used for any purpose.